Previously on Unknown, Unsolved, Unseen. Following the murders at Lake Herman Road, investigators seemingly had a motiveless double homicide on their hands. However, by mid-August of 1969, those investigating the case were now tasked with solving 3 murders, 1 attempted murder, 4 letters sent to 3 newspapers, a bizarre cipher with a foreboding solution, and a killer who named themselves the Zodiac. Join us today as we continue our investigation into the Zodiac Killer. All right, everyone, welcome back to
Unknown,
Unsolved,
Unseen.
Triple U.
Woohoo! Wow,
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 54. We are now, actually, no, not yet, but we're about to be in October, which will be spooky season. So we're going to get into the spooky wookie dookie. I don't know how to say that. Also, right now, let me just get into this. First off, I'm Frank.
I'm Sage.
And if you're listening today, that means you missed the September 23rd rapture. Womp, womp, womp.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, so did we.
So literally every other person on this planet.
True. Yes, welcome to episode 2 of Zodiac Killer, of what is probably going to turn into 4 parts instead of 3.
Or are you just doing longer other parts? Because here's the plan that we want to discuss. I believe we're going to take a break here after this one for Spooky Month.
Yeah, so my plan is, this is a really, really intense case that's way longer and way more in depth than I expected it to be honest. So my goal is to have the rest of the Zodiac Killer done for November, but I don't want to take away from Spooky Month by doing the Zodiac Killer. So I'm only one person, and I do need a little bit of a break from this guy. He's real creepy. So I would like to take some time to just do some more lighthearted, spooky things along those lines, and then we'll come back to it in November when I feel I can give it the research that it deserves. If you're listening to this, like, way down the line, congratulations. You probably already have all the episodes, but I'm sorry to those that will be looking forward to the next one, or 2, depending on the information that I have, but I do need a break. I'm one person.
Yeah, hopefully you guys have no issue with that.
I don't want to take away from Spooky Month. I want to do some fun stuff. We're coming up with some things that we wanted to do for Spooky Month, so we're going to do that, and then we'll come back.
If you have issues with that, let us know. If not, then buckle up.
You can let us know, but I don't know that we'll do anything. But we appreciate maybe we won't do this again.
Yeah, we'll maybe try and avoid the long multi-parters.
Why?
Well, okay, a very long 4-part multi-parters.
Yeah, well, this is like one of, if not the biggest mysterious serial killer case ever.
Yeah, I think you can fit Bigfoot into 2. Okay. One half for the top half of Bigfoot, second half for the other half, and then we put them together and you get full-on Bigfoot. How do you cut a Zodiac Killer into 4 pieces? Do you got, like, the left leg, right leg, torso, and then head?
I don't know that I'm going to dignify that with a response.
All right.
There's so much involved in this case. It's insane.
I know.
And it's never been solved, and there's, like, tons of, like, there's more people they don't even know if they're connected to the Zodiac, but they could be. Who knows?
All right.
So.
Well, you mind if I give my little announcements here?
Go for it.
All right. So, check the socials for our announcements for upcoming events, especially the Carbondale Festival, which we will be going to. We're excited to go there to that. If you guys are interested, go check out their page on Instagram or their website online. Go check out that festival because we will be there, and we're really looking forward to that one on November 8th, I believe, right?
Yeah, because the 7th is a Friday.
Yep. Well, I was saying because the 5th is a Wednesday. I forgot what the rest were.
Oh, I have blood work on the 7th.
So yeah, that's what we got going on. And here is going to be a message from one of our friends in another podcast that you should totally check out.
Have you ever seen a shadow linger in the corner of your eye, seen a flashing light dart across the sky? Have you ever wished upon a candle to make your wish come true? I'm sure you've told a haunted tale or two. Are you interested in learning the pagan ways? Witchcraft, grimoires, candles await. Have you ever seen the living dead and stood still instead of fled? Cryptics are fun, but the universe has our eye. The stars align, shows us our signs, and we're here to discuss the divine. Welcome to Moon Brews, a supernatural podcast, hosted by yours truly, Haley.
All right, don't know whose ad we put in there, but we put in somebody's. Good job, Sage.
Thanks.
All right, that's all I had.
Okay, so we ready to hop back into what's going to be decent length episode?
I believe so.
Sounds good. So trigger warnings for this episode are going to be the same as last time. General serial killer stuff, guns, stabbing. There is brief mention of sexual assault. So if those are things you don't want to hear about, then we'll see you for spooky season.
Yeah, where I get spooky and kind of disturbing, so who knows on those if we'll see you there too.
Yeah. Alrighty, so where I left off with all of y'all is what I just started the episode with. We've got 3 murders, 1 attempted murder, 4 letters, a cipher, and the killer nicknaming himself the Zodiac. And he was not done with his killing spree, unfortunately. So California and Napa Valley specifically would have their world rocked as the killer made his way from Vallejo and Venecia north to Napa Valley. Located in the hills above Napa Valley was the liberal arts college Pacific Union College, known for being a small Seventh-day Adventist school. Is that part of the Mormon Church?
Yes, I believe so. Also, liberal arts. Where's my conservative arts college?
Here in 1968, students Cecilia Ann Shepard and Brian Calvin Hartnell would meet and develop a romantic relationship with one another. Unfortunately, as time went on, the couple eventually grew apart, and by 1969, Cecilia had decided to finish her studies closer to her Southern California hometown of Loma Linda. Here, she would enroll at the University of California, Riverside, and was prepared to start classes in October of 1969. Unfortunately, Cecilia had belongings that were still located at her place in Pacific Union College, and so she made the decision to go north to retrieve them. Oh, I just realized this. On Saturday, September 27th of 1969. Yesterday was September 27th.
Oh.
And a Saturday. Cecilia, who was now 22, was back on campus to grab her things where she happened to run into Brian, who was 20, in the campus cafeteria. The two would catch up with one another and find themselves not wanting to leave each other's company. Wanted to continue hanging out, Cecilia and Brian, as well as their friend Judy, who'd been eating with Brian in the cafeteria, decided to go to the nearby town of St. Helena, where they went to a rummage sale. I'm assuming that's the same as like a garbage sale. Garbage? Garage
sale.
We both had that wrong.
I know. I was trying to say, like, she means garage, and then I'm like, I can't say garage. I can't word.
Yes, we are tired. It's been a long weekend.
Yeah, I'm a bit eepy.
By the afternoon, Judy departed from the couple and presumably headed back to campus. Brian and Cecilia originally planned to go to San Francisco, but changed their minds and traveled to the local lake of Lake Berryessa. Lake Berryessa was a man-made lake that was used as a vital water infrastructure, bringing water to nearby towns, but it was also a popular recreational destination.
Man-made ones?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, wait, this one's man-made. Wait, do we have man-made ones around us?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Laurel Lake and Fuller Lake in Mount Holly.
Oh, I'd never been to those.
We used to go to them all the time.
I think Gifford Pinchot, and I'm like, I don't think
No, that one's not man-made.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure.
It's just deep in the middle. But no, those two lakes, Fuller and Laurel, and then I think Raystown is also.
Raystown is a man-made lake.
Yeah, and there's like stuff underneath the water. This is why, listen, submechanophobia, real thing. Man-made objects underneath the water, terrifying. People telling me I was going to get attached to the cranes and shit at the bottom of Laurel Lake. No, thank you.
You know what's crazy about Raystown Lake, though?
They have huge freaking flies.
No, the fact that there's a lake monster there for a man-made lake. Like, okay, yeah, because that makes sense.
Oh, maybe
There's definitely a Loch Ness monster-like creature in Raystown Lake in a man-made lake.
Maybe he immigrated. I don't know. Brian had been to this lake previously and had remembered a spot on the western shore that he had found to be really beautiful. And so he decided to take Cecilia there. After being unable to find the exact spot he was looking for, Brian and Cecilia decided to choose a location at random. So Brian parked his Volkswagen Harman Gia on Knoxville Road, and the couple made their way down to the shoreline of the lake. At the end of the peninsula where they were, which was basically a small island, that was just connected by a sand pit to Twin Oak Ridge. So they call it a peninsula, but really it was just sand rather than like actual land that connected the two. Brian laid out a blanket for the couple to sit on and to have they had a casual conversation and were likely going to have a picnic. A little while later, sometime following their 4 p.m. arrival to the lake, so different than the other cases, which were late at night, Brian heard some rustling nearby, likely coming from the trees. At the time, Brian was laying on his back, and Cecilia was facing him while on her stomach. Since Cecilia had a better vantage point, Brian asked her what was making the noise, to which she replied that it appeared to be a man who was watching them.
That's not weird or anything.
Yeah. She then stated the man moved behind a tree, and Brian suggested the man was likely just, quote, taking a leak. Short while later, though, the man reemerged from behind the tree and was surprisingly close to where the couple was, where Cecilia could see that the man had a gun, to which she explained to Brian, "Oh my god, he's got a gun." Presumably, while the man was behind the tree, he put on a bizarre disguise, different from what has been seen before with the Zodiac Killer. His head was completely covered with an executioner-style hood, where the top of the hood looked flat and had 4 corners, similar to a paper grocery bag turned upside down.
Okay, so now I know which picture I'm going to use for the Instagram post.
Yeah.
Because I saw that as an example when I looked up pictures. I'm like, I gotta wait until you mentioned this, because I'm like, I was looking when I was making the post 2 weeks ago. I'm like, I have not heard this description yet of him wearing this.
Yeah, it's so creepy.
Honestly, that's so fucking fucked up. Like, black executioner mask, hiding behind a tree with a gun, watching you.
Yeah. The cloth of the hood extended down nearly to the man's waist in both the front and the back. And neatly embroidered on the chest area of the hood was a concentric cross and circle, with the circle being about 3 inches in diameter. While unknown to Brian and Cecilia, this was the symbol of the Zodiac Killer. The eye openings of the hood were covered by clip-on sunglasses. Because again, this one's in the daylight.
Okay. For some reason, I thought we were at night.
No, just after 4 p.m. Despite brandishing a gun, which Hartnell believed was a .45 caliber, and cloaked in what was probably one of the scariest garbs I could ever imagine someone being in, the killer attempted to reassure the couple that he wouldn't harm them if they gave up their money and Brian's vehicle. He used a ruse, stating that he was an escaped convict from the Deer Lodge prison in Montana, who said that he was en route to Mexico after killing a guard in jail. Reportedly, Brian attempted to engage the gunman in conversation throughout the initial parts of the whole ordeal, utilizing what was reported as his knowledge from his undergraduate classes in sociology and psychology. He offered to write the man a check or provide other types of assistance, but the gunman just ignored him. After handing over the 75 cents that he had,
oh man, big money.
Yeah, and throwing his wallet and keys to the gunman stated, "I'm gonna have to tie you up." The gunman then took out a few pre-cut lengths of plastic clothesline from his pocket, tossed some of the rope to Cecilia, where he ordered her to tie Brian's hands behind his back. Complying nervously, Cecilia tied Brian's hands with the rope, but rather loosely. After the gunman then tied her up, he went over to Brian and tightened his bonds extremely tightly. Ordering Brian onto his stomach so he could tie his feet, Brian protested until the gunman produced his gun and put it to Brian's head, exclaiming, "I told you to get down," which forced Brian to comply due to literally having no other choice. The gunman proceeded to hog tie Brian, which is like when the ankles get bound together and then the hands are bound together behind your back, and then your ankles and your hands are then bound together as well.
Yep. I know that from playing Red Dead Redemption.
Well, yeah, and that description's really for in case anyone else needs to know what that is.
Yeah, because that's probably more of an American thing, calling it hog tying.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what they would call it elsewhere. But the reason it's called hog tying is that essentially, while it's not from behind their back, it is from the front, and that's how they tie hogs to carry them and stuff. At this point, Brian was completely immobilized and unable to do anything to protect Cecilia, with whom the gunman also hogtied. Brian noticed that the man's hands were shaking, and so he asked him, "Are you nervous?" To which the gunman replied, "Yes, I guess so." Unfortunately, the man wasn't nervous enough to stop his attack on the couple, though. The exact details of what happened are a little foggy, as after the attack, Brian admitted he was uncertain whether he saw the killer draw a knife, or whether he simply felt the assailant plunge the weapon into his back.
Is this his first time acting in broad daylight, to our knowledge?
Yes.
Okay, so, that could relate to the nervousness because might be first time in his getup.
Mm-hmm. He also reportedly told the park ranger who found them first that the killer said, "I'm going to have to stab you." To which Brian reported that he said, "Stab me first. I'm chicken. I couldn't stand to see her stabbed first." In some articles, the word "I'm chicken" are omitted, or the killer responds with, "I'll do just that." Either way. The killer went on to stab Brian at least 6 to 8 times in the back. Brian faked his death in what is considered a, quote, remarkable presence of mind and an impressive capacity for self-control. Believing that he had killed Brian, the killer moved his aggression to Cecilia, where he stabbed her even more viciously than he did Brian. Unlike Brian, Cecilia did put up a fight, which I don't blame her. I too would try to put up a fight, I believe. That's a lie. I probably would not. Do you think you would put up a fight?
I'd put up a fight.
No. I don't want to live through like the apocalypse or anything. I don't know. We would never know what we would do unless we were put in this situation. And the killer ended up stabbing her at least 10 times in the back, abdomen, and groin. Brian would later recall that the man entered a state of, quote, frenzy during the attack on Cecilia. Believing that he had killed both victims, the killer stood up and walked away from the scene without another word. Brian's wallet and keys still were laying where he threw them to the killer. Telltale signs that the ruse the killer used of being an escaped inmate no longer served its purpose.
So Brian survives, albeit terribly injured. He faked his death. How about the woman?
She survives for a short period of time, and then she does end up passing.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. As soon as the man left, Brian and Cecilia began talking with one another. Brian was able to maneuver himself into a position where he was able to free one of Cecilia's hands with his teeth. Unfortunately, she was unable to do much to help Brian due to how numb her hands were from being tied so tightly. They changed their focus to attracting attention from passerbys, who they hoped would hear their desperate cries for help. Eventually, a fishing boat pulled close to the shore and turned its engine off. After about 15 minutes, the boatman sailed away, much to Brian and Cecilia's dismay, because they believed then that their cries weren't successful, and they're both, bleeding out. However, their cries were successful, as the occupant of the boat, named Richard Fong, had seen and heard them, and concluded that something was seriously wrong, though he had left to go get help, because remember, this is the 60s. There's no cell phones.
The cell phone really changed a lot of things.
Definitely. Eventually, Cecilia was able to feel her arms again, which allowed her to loosen Brian's ties, which then allowed him to undo the rest of both of theirs. Believing that no help was on the way, Brian set off towards where his car was parked about 500 yards back from the shore up the hill. Here, he ran into Park Ranger Dennis Land, who was responding to a radio broadcast of Richard Fong's report. So they at least had the radio. Brian had made it about 225 yards towards his vehicle, so almost halfway. Meanwhile, Richard Fong, Park Ranger William White, and a local husband and wife who heard Fong's need for assistance made their way back to the crime scene via speedboat. Here they found Cecilia in excruciating pain and radioed for an ambulance and did their best to try to help her in any way that they could. Shortly after that, Brian and Park Ranger Land arrived back at the scene. The ambulance and Napa Valley Sheriff's Department officers Dave Collins and Ray Land were there. Cecilia was able to give a detailed description of the attacker since she was facing him for a longer period of time than Brian was. The paramedics and other emergency staff attended to the two victims and began transporting them to the Queen of the Valley Hospital. Unfortunately, though, it had taken the ambulance about 45 minutes to get to the couple and nearly the same time to make it to the hospital. By the time they reached the hospital, Brian was still conscious, but Cecilia had lapsed into a coma. About 2 days later, September 29th, at about 3:45 p.m., all surrounded by her family, Cecilia would succumb to her injuries and unfortunately pass away.
That was very unfortunate. Glad she was able to give the detailed description in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, that takes remarkable strength, in my opinion. So, what did the Zodiac do? Well, after believing he had killed the couple, the Zodiac hiked the 500 yards to Knoxville Road, where Brian's car was parked. On his way, he left some footprints for investigators to study, and it turns out that he could be tracked down from the car to the crime scene as well. The killer also drew the symbol of the Zodiac on the passenger door of Brian's vehicle with a black felt tip pen, and then wrote beneath it, Vallejo, 12/20/68, 7/4/69. September 27th, 69, 6:30, by knife. The footprints led right from the crime scene to the passenger door. Police were able to make plaster casts of the footprints, and they were also able to take multiple photographs as well. If you recall from episode 1, the Vallejo murders took place December 20th of 68, so 12/20/68, and July 4th of 69, 7/4/69. And then obviously this was September 27th of 69. Killer says it's at 6:30. So they get there about 4, sometime after 4, it's 6:30 when they're attacked. Tire tracks by Brian's car would indicate that the killer parked his own vehicle behind Brian's car before trekking down to the lakeside. Interestingly, the tire tracks revealed that the front 2 tires on the killer's car did not match each other.
Is that, like, common or not?
That's very uncommon and very bad for your car's alignment. That's why they say, like, if you have a flat tire, you need to get 4 new ones or at least 2 new ones so that they're balanced.
Okay.
I only know that from when I had a nail in my tire. I don't know that anything came of the tire tracks, though, obviously, because we don't have a killer. The killer then made his way to a phone booth near a local car wash at the corner of Main and Clinton Streets in downtown Napa, where at 7:40 p.m. he picked up the receiver. When the operator asked for the phone number from which the man was calling, the killer refused to provide it. David Slate, a young rookie officer, was the one who answered the call, stating Napa Police Department, Officer Slate. The killer began talking and stated, "I'd like to report a murder. No, a double murder. They are 2 miles north of park headquarters. They were in a white Volkswagen Carmen Gia." The officer tried to get additional information, but all the killer said was, "I'm the one who did it," and then put the phone down but didn't place it back on the hanger. Therefore, the officer could hear the noise of traffic and fleeting voices in the background because he hadn't put it on the receiver. Officer Slate notified the sheriff's department of the call and then asked the operator to initiate a trace of the call, where she was able to provide the officer with the information that the payphone had a 255 area code, an area code that served a subset of the Napa area. After investigations, the police were able to determine that the killer had called the police from less than half a mile away. They were even able to get 35 latent fingerprints from the receiver, including an especially promising palm print that seemed like pretty recent.
So it sounds like they're getting a lot of evidence if the person is in a database.
Yeah, and at this time, like, databases like that didn't exist.
But records did, right?
Records did, yeah. But when was Oh, there was a fingerprint database. It was established in 1924. That existed at the time. I didn't know that.
Probably more like physical, like recording, but still, nonetheless, it existed.
Yeah, it went automated in 1999.
So yeah, then they had stuff to check it on, but based on what you're telling me, I'm taking a guess. They have the information of a guy who is not in any database.
At least not in the ones in this area. So something that like you see a lot in true crime cases, especially in this era, and especially in California, is that police departments don't want to cooperate with one another. Like whoever's jurisdiction it is, they just want it to remain in that jurisdiction. So it's possible he could have been in another county's database at some point. Obviously, by now we would have figured that out, and we haven't. So it's not obviously not true, but it could have been. Unfortunately, when the police went back to investigate the crime scene further, they found out that the site of the attack had been completely compromised. A very well-meaning park ranger removed all of the physical evidence, the victim's possessions, the blood-stained ropes, and other stuff, to the park headquarters. I'm not sure why, but I guess I would assume it was to save either the victim's possessions or clear the area of the crime, that other visitors didn't like happen upon it. I don't know. But like, then again, that also wouldn't necessarily make sense if it's roped off and there's police everywhere. Like, visitors aren't going to come up to that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
So he did take this stuff?
Yeah, the park ranger took everything from the crime scene back to park headquarters.
With gloves on, please?
That I didn't read.
I mean, he should have kept it there for a crime scene.
Yeah.
I don't agree with him taking it. And I really hope if he did, he put gloves on, because holy shit, people love to destroy crime scenes by accident.
Yeah. And again, I don't know if he did put gloves on or not, so.
Well, it was the victim's belongings, right?
The victim's belongings, the blood-stained rope that they'd been tied up with.
The blood-stained rope definitely shouldn't have. The victim's belongings, I don't think, from what you described, I don't think he touched them.
No, not that I recall.
Okay. But the blood-stained rope, I'm concerned about that being moved.
Yep, it was taken back to park headquarters.
God damn it. Them damn park rangers.
All the sources made sure to, like, say that he was well-meaning. I don't know if there's, like, additional information about that.
But what happened because of that? Like, what did it fuck up?
Well, they weren't able to get any photos of the crime scene. Like, not the way that they should have been able to.
God damn it, Park Ranger. What was the name?
They didn't actually state which one did it.
Shit, Park Ranger Bob. What the hell? Or maybe it was Smokey the Bear.
Could have been. Or, Yogi.
Yogi Bear is not working for the parks, okay? Yogi Bear and Boo Boo just like to take picnic baskets. And Boo Boo sometimes likes to talk about the corruption of the capitalist system and how the proletariat should take over and take the means of production away from the rich. But what does he know? He's just a little old bear. There is a thing where he does talk about advocating for communism.
What?
Little Boo Boo talks about advocating for communism.
That was, like, actually a pretty good impression of Yogi.
Thank you. I'd like to take picnic baskets.
Frank has a shirt that my mom's dog absolutely hates, but it says
official picnic basket
inspector. It has a
bring
brown
me
bear
your
on
picnic
it.
basket.
Makes me laugh every time. So the following day, so this is Sunday the 28th, the dean of Pacific Union College called the Napa County Sheriff's Office and reported that 3 young women might have some valuable information for the police to know about the prior day's murders. On Monday, the 3 co-eds went to the sheriff's office and shared their stories, all of which were essentially the same. Around 2:50 p.m., the day of the murders, so about 3 hours prior to the attack, the 3 young women, students at Pacific Union College, made their way to Lake Berryessa to sunbathe. The women chose a spot on the western shore of the lake in the general vicinity? In the general vicinity of the attack, but not exactly the same spot. As they were getting out of their vehicle, a man pulled into the lot and parked nearby. The man was driving a newer, light blue Chevrolet with California license plates. They noticed him again after they'd been sunbathing for some time, and it was clear that the man was watching them. After about 30 minutes or so, the man walked closer to the girls and was about 20 feet from them before he left the area. At 4:30 p.m., when the women returned to their car, the man in his car had left. At that point, Cecilia and Brian's car would have been nearby too. Since they had potentially seen the Zodiac Killer without his hood on, the women worked with Napa Valley Register photographer Robert McKenzie to create a composite sketch using an identikit facial compositing device. I don't really know what that is, but I'm going to assume it previous version of AI. I don't know.
No, not even that. I have no idea, but that's confusing and intriguing.
Yeah. So the unidentified suspect was described as approximately 30 years old, 6 feet tall, and likely weighing somewhere between 200 to 225 pounds. He was also described as stocky, with dark hair that he parted on the left side.
How tall again?
About 6 foot.
Okay, so he's not like skinny for like his size.
No, he's a little bit plumper.
He's not as what Hank Hill would say, some twig boy.
No. This actually matched the descriptions that Cecilia gave before she passed and that Brian gave while he was at the hospital. Additionally, he was described as wearing dark pants and a short sleeve sweater shirt, which are coming back in style. I have one in my closet.
Are you the Zodiac Killer?
No, and I also have yet to take the tags off it, and I've had it for 2 years. I should get rid of it. Fuck. Okay.
That's your call.
All of which was within the sketch of the Zodiac. Police showed the image to the other potential witnesses, but it's really unclear if anything actually came from this, but at least there was something. Investigators focused on the footprints, and one detective even took a cast of the shoe print to nearly a dozen shoe stores in the Napa Valley. Napa area, really. Unfortunately, this yielded no results, but very interesting that happened.
Interesting way to go about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are so many different types of shoes out there, it's hard to tell.
Yeah. But a break in identifying the shoe came from a retired Air Force Master Sergeant who owned a similar pair of shoes. He told investigators that many people in the U.S. Air Force were issued this type of shoe as a part of their uniform. However, civilian personnel also employed on Air Force bases would have also been given these shoes, increasing the suspect size exponentially, though it still narrowed it down a little bit.
And they were able to confirm what the retired Air Force guy said?
My understanding is, yeah.
Okay.
They were known as wing walkers because their anti-static soles were designed specifically to allow the wearers to be able to walk on the wings of airplanes. With this information and help from the Travis Air Force Base, investigators were able to determine that the size of the shoe was a men's 10.5, which is a little small.
Okay.
Like not small, but like it's on the smaller side of for someone who's 6 foot.
Okay.
At the time of the discovery, I don't believe they were able to do anything with this information, though. And I didn't read much more about it yet.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, but interesting they have it. Although there's a lot of men out there with 10.5 size shoes.
So, what I'd almost think is what you can say is these were given by the government, right?
Essentially, to Air Force bases.
Maybe the Air Force Base should have kept track of who they gave their shoes to and what size they gave.
Right, do you know how many people are on Air Force bases?
A lot.
Yeah, and this guy could have gotten them from any Air Force base.
Yeah, but you should probably keep some kind of a record because you could probably narrow it down to a couple hundred people or maybe a couple thousand.
That's still a lot of people.
But then you cut.
And that's a lot of man hours for 1969.
Yeah, I know, but you had a somewhat vague description of him. You know he's a white guy. You know what he's driving. I mean, shit, we could have gotten somewhere with that.
Why don't you drive to the Napa Valley, talk to the police department, tell them to do that.
They probably didn't keep the records I'm asking for, hence why it didn't happen.
So, the attack at Lake Berryessa represented a significant turning point in the evolution of a serial killer, in that it was the first time he had struck since publicly establishing his persona. It also showcased that the killer was becoming more audacious, more inexplicable, and horrifying. Though the note on Brian's car offered very little details about the killer, detectives and investigators immediately, without hesitation, concluded that this attack was the work of the Cypher Killer. Or Zodiac Killer, as he wanted to be identified. Detectives also speculated that the killer may engage the newspapers and detectives with more letters. It would remain to be seen whether this would be accurate. Spoiler alert, it was. The last confirmed victim of the Zodiac murder took place only 2 weeks after the Lake Berryessa attacks, so we're looking at an escalation. And again, this is the confirmed victims. It's not all the victims they think that the killer has. A 29-year-old San Francisco resident named Paul Stein was going about the normal routines of his life. As a graduate student at San Francisco State College, Paul was working toward a PhD in English. According to his family, Paul was on schedule to complete his degree by January of 1970, so only a few months from then. Seeing as college was expensive and that Joe, Paul's brother, could only provide so much monetary assistance, Paul worked as a taxi cab driver for the Yellow Cab Taxi Company. It's assumed that he would work the night shift, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., due to his school schedule. On Saturday, October 11th, which again is a Saturday, obviously, because it's, same days apart. But
didn't you say Saturday before that?
What?
It's Saturday, and then you said, which is obviously a Saturday.
Well, this year, it's also a Saturday.
Okay,
and I said that's because the days apart are the same.
Okay. I was so confused. I'm like, you said Saturday, which is obviously a Saturday. I'm like,
sorry, I should have specified that I meant it's also a Saturday this year.
Okay.
But anyway, so again, this was 2 weeks to the day, literally, after the Lake Berryessa attack. Paul reported to the Yellow Cab Taxi Company for another shift, and by 9:30 p.m., he had completed his first fare of the evening and had just received notification from dispatch that another request had come in. On his way to the request, Paul would pick up his second fare of the night at about 9:40 p.m. He picked up a lone man who hailed the cab at the intersection of Mason and Geary Streets. The man requested that Paul drive him to Washington and Maple, an intersection in the affluent Presidio, Presidio.
Okay, Presidio.
Presidio?
Yes, but keep going.
Heights neighborhood. Paul did record the entry in his logbook, started the meter, and then began the journey. When the taxi arrived at the destination, the man asked for the driver to pull forward 1 more block to the corner of Washington and Cherry Streets. Once the vehicle stopped, the unidentified man drew a 9mm handgun, put the gun to Paul's head just behind his right ear, and fired a single shot. The time was around 9:55 p.m. The killer then moved to the front passenger seat. The shooting was not witnessed by anyone or heard by anyone, nor did anyone witness the killer move to the front seat. However, by the time the killer moved to the passenger seat, there were 3 teens/children. I kept seeing them described as teens, but I also saw that their ages were 16, 12, and 8.
Okay.
2 of which would not be teens, but whatever.
Yeah, what do you mean?
8 and 12 are not teens.
For some reason, I thought you said 18.
No. In the 3rd floor residence across the street did notice the situation. They did not know that Paul was fatally wounded at the time, but did see the killer struggling with his body and digging into his pockets. One of the youths, likely the youngest, phoned the police. The older 2 of them, so the 12 and 16-year-old, descended to the 1st floor of the house to watch the situation from a better vantage point. They witnessed the killer wiping down the inside of the cab with some type of cloth, and then moving Paul's body into an upright position behind the steering wheel, exited the taxi cab, closed the passenger door, and then wiped down the outside of the passenger door. He then walked around the back of the cab to the driver's side of the car, where he opened the door, stole Paul's wallet and car keys, repositioned his body, which had slumped over, closed the door, then wiped down the exterior of the door with the cloth. He then left the scene quite casually by walking north on Cherry Street.
What time of day was this?
Like 9:55 p.m., 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So dark. Because it's October too, so it's getting dark earlier. When he reached the intersection of Cherry and Jackson, the killer crossed to the north side of the street, turned right, and continued east on Jackson. While the killer was wiping down the vehicle, the 3 kids who watched from their home, again, had called the San Francisco Police Department. The children were able to describe the man as a husky white man in a darker black jacket. Unfortunately, as it seems to be with all cases from the 60s, 70s, the dispatcher mistakenly alerted the San Francisco Police Department that the suspect was a black man.
Oh, because that's the solution. It's always a black guy for some reason when it isn't. Gotta love the 1960s up to probably modern day racisms.
I don't know how they got from, I guess I could kind of see it from husky white man wearing a black or navy jacket. But, like, that's a huge mistake to make.
Maybe they're like, oh, the kids must have actually seen a black guy. It had to be that.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Now, racism was alive and well then, and it still is pretty alive today.
I hate it. But this mistake would cause one of the most significant missed opportunities in the entirety of the Zodiac Killer case. Officer Donald, I think it's Folk, Fouke. And his temporary...
Fouke?
Yeah.
Falk.
Fouke?
Yes.
Falk? Okay.
This is the Falk Lake monster.
Oh, good to know. And his temporary partner for the evening, rookie officer Eric Zelms.
Real quick tangent. That means the Falk Lake monster has been mentioned 2 episodes in a row.
The officers drove west on Jackson and observed a white male walking down the street. So we can assume that this was the Zodiac Killer based on location, time, and the description that the officers were able to give. The officers pulled alongside the man and asked if he had seen anything suspicious in the area. The man confirmed he had seen someone waving a gun and heading east. Thanking the man, the officers pulled away since they thought they were looking for a black man.
Yeah, because the guy would be willingly waving his gun as he went east.
Fair.
Dumbasses.
Apparently the officers didn't understand that, though. After the officers had driven off, the killer continued on Jackson and turned north into the Presidio by, like town or whatever, by the way of the Julius Kahn Playground. This was a then active army post that was nearly 1,500 acres of brush and woods. Witnesses later confirmed seeing the man run into the area of the playground. Back at the crime scene, officers Armin Pellicetti and Frank Pita were the first San Francisco Police Department officers to arrive on the scene. They found the witnesses approaching the cab and quickly ushered them to a safe location. While questioning the kids, Officer Pellicetti realized the initial description was incorrect and quickly contacted dispatch to say the man was white. This was then relayed out to responding officers. Realizing they had likely talked to the real killer, Falk and Zelms circled back around, but they couldn't find the man. Officer Pellicetti took one look at Paul in the vehicle and concluded that he was dead. He called for backup to look for the suspect and an ambulance to confirm his suspicions. Emergency personnel pronounced Paul dead at the scene. The time was 10:10 p.m., so 15 minutes after he'd been shot. An impressive search was implemented, using fire trucks with spotlights on them, federal and local government police departments. All 7 units of the San Francisco Canine Force were called into action, and military personnel joined in as well. However, the search would turn up nothing. While the search had not turned up the killer, there were some successes within the taxi cab itself. The killer had left a pair of men's black leather gloves on the back seat, which were surprisingly size 7, which would be considered a small size for a man. So size 7 gloves, size 10.5 shoe. There was also a 9mm shell casing from the bullet that killed Paul, as well as about 30 fingerprints, including one that belonged to Paul, and another that included traces of blood and therefore was likely from the killer himself. As I mentioned earlier, the killer stole Paul's wallet and keys, but the detectives would find out later that the killer had also torn out a square piece of Paul's shirt from the back of his neck. That comes into play later. While Paul's murder was brutal, it was unfortunately not uncommon for taxi cab drivers to be the victims of armed robberies. Because there was no evidence at this time connecting the Zodiac to the murder, the officers operated under the initial belief that Paul's death was from a robbery gone bad. Unlike the other crime scenes, the Zodiac did not leave any clues or messages behind. He also did not make a taunting call to the police in the hours after the murder, unlike the other cases as well. The San Francisco Chronicle ran a short story at the bottom of the front page describing Paul's murder as an apparent robbery attempt. By Monday, San Francisco police had released a composite sketch of the killer based on the young teen's descriptions. The sketch was accompanied by a written description of the suspect. White male, 25 to 30 years old, 5'8" to 5'9", about 150 pounds. They also described him as having reddish-brown hair styled on a crew cut and wearing heavy-rimmed glasses and a navy blue or black jacket. The sketch and description would go on to be published in the Examiner on Tuesday.
Is this a famous, fiction we have of him?
It is one of them. It is very different, though, from the way that Brian and Cecilia described their killer. Just as a heads up. We're talking 75 pounds less and 3 inches shorter. And the killer had his hair parted to the side. This one has a crew cut. We can assume that the Zodiac did not like his killing being attributed to an apparent robbery attempt, seeing as his motive was likely not to take the keys and wallet, but really just to make the kill. Therefore, it makes some sense that sometime shortly after the murder, the Zodiac wrote a single-page letter using a blue felt-tip pen, which would become one of his calling cards, and he put the letter and a small piece of Paul's bloodstained shirt into an envelope and mailed it to the San Francisco Chronicle. He even stamped the envelope twice to make sure that it had the necessary postage to be mailed based on its weight. On Monday, he dropped the envelope into a postal box, though it was never identified which postal box it came from, which probably would have been helpful. This letter would make the killer go from a city and statewide phenomenon to sending the nation into a panic, which is probably exactly what the killer wanted. So unfortunate for everybody else. For him, he was probably ecstatic. Fortunately, the Chronicle did the right thing and immediately started cooperating with the San Francisco Police Department and handed over the letter and shirt clipping, though they did take pictures before doing so, as, newspapers would. The police were able to confirm that the shirt piece was some, but not all, of the piece that was missing from the back of Paul's shirt.
So he had more of Paul's shirt still.
Yes.
That's weird.
It is weird. Here's what the letter said. This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a bloodstained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay area. The SF police would have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly, instead of holding road races with their motorcycles, seeing who could make the most noise. The car driver should have just parked their cars and sat there quietly waiting for me to come out of cover. School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire, plus, then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. He then signed it with his signature Zodiac symbol.
And he never did this about the bus thing.
No.
Which also makes sense. He's not a out in broad daylight type of guy.
No, but how terrifying is that?
Oh yeah, very.
So, obviously understanding the gravity of the situation, the editors of, the Chronicle, per the direction of the San Francisco Police Department, decided to publish the news of the letter on the front page above the fold. The article included a partial reproduction of the communication and the initial composite sketch released by the San Francisco Police Department. Notably missing from the article, however, was the killer's threat to harm school children. I'm sure that this is likely to not only protect the sanity of those with children in the area, but also to buy some time to figure out how the hell they were going to make people aware of this horrible threat without causing a mass panic.
Yeah, you cause a very, very easy mass panic moment.
Yeah, and people get more hurt if there's mass panic. So.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
Yeah, that's why they fire drills. You have to walk. They don't want you to run out. You're gonna get hurt.
But yeah, in real life, people will run.
I would stay. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That was horrible. By Thursday, October 16th, Chief of Inspectors Martin Lee was paraphrased as saying that the cloth and the bloodstains on it were conclusively linked to Paul's shirt via forensic testing. He also stated that handwriting analysis had shown, quote, no dissimilarities between the letter about Paul and the earlier letters reportedly written by the Zodiac. At this point, there was no denying that a killer, the same killer, was on the loose in San Francisco. I don't know how big of a fan I am of handwriting analysis, but makes sense, I guess, that they were able to connect,
I think it's a good...
line them up.
I think handwriting analysis is interesting. That was a big thing in Robert Durst, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Misspelled the same words and used the same lettering.
Well, and this guy uses pluses instead of saying and. That's a part of his thing.
Yeah. But more than just how you write the words, it's how you spell and how you, substitute.
Yeah, just for me, though, when I think of how I write sometimes at a slant, I write sometimes straight, sometimes it's, sloppy, sometimes it's neat, sometimes it's half cursive, half print. It's never the same. I have to be, in the same mood. My hand has to not be hurting. I don't know. That might just be me, though. On that same day, so again, Thursday following Paul's murder, the police decided they could no longer hold back the threat to school children. Therefore, they had to disclose it. Chief of Inspectors Martin Lee issued an all-points bulletin with specific instructions for school bus drivers to follow in the event of an emergency. If a tire is punctured or shots are heard, keep the bus in motion at all costs. Instruct passengers to lie on the floor. Attract as much attention as possible by sounding the horn, flashing the lights, and erratic driving, if necessary. The all-points bulletin also included an amended description of the suspect. He'd been originally described as 25 to 30 years old, 150 pounds and with reddish brown hair, but he was now described as about 40 years old, heavy built, and having brown hair with a possible reddish tint. I'm not sure where this change came from. That does better match the description from Cecilia and Brian, though. So I don't know if there's like evidence for why they changed it, or if like some reason they just changed it to look the way that Cecilia and Brian described him.
I don't know. I cannot give you a definitive answer.
California Attorney General Thomas Lynch became involved in the case and coordinated actions across the 5 Bay Area counties. He assured the public that the necessary agencies and precautions were in place, and he urged the public to not engage in hysteria, and that the odds are that no tragedy will occur. This would make sense for San Francisco because of how urban and populated the area was. If a school's bus's tire got shot out, a lot of people would be around to see it. However, for places like Napa County, where Cecilia Shepard was murdered and Brian Hartnell was almost murdered, this is a different story. Here, bus routes were mostly rural and isolated, and this made the threat more acute for the area. The county had 64 buses that ran 4,000 miles a day and delivered nearly 10,000 students to the county's 28 schools. At the time of the public disclosure, local law enforcement agencies and the California Highway Patrol provided armed escorts to the entire fleet of buses.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah. Even local aircraft helped monitor the transit of the county's school children. Also, every bus driver had a volunteer that was instructed to be on the lookout for suspicious activity and to take over driving the bus in the event that the driver became incapacitated. In a fascinating display of interagency cooperation, 27 detectives representing law enforcement agencies in the area met in San Francisco to share and review information on the killer. Detectives from each jurisdiction where the killer had committed a crime presented the facts of their respected cases. I say this is fascinating because it was so rare for agencies to cooperate with one another during this time, which is one of the main reasons that the Golden State Killer was not found in the prime of his killing and raping spree. Because he was known as like 3 different names. Here, the East Area Rapist. I don't remember what the other ones are. I don't remember. He had like 3 or 4 different names for all the crimes that he was committing, but the agencies wouldn't talk to each other. That's why he wasn't found until 2020.
Yeah.
At the same time, the San Francisco police released an amended composite of the suspect with those updated details as well. So the All Points Bulletin had the updated details. Now the composite to the public also had the updated details. An interesting side note here that I thought was memorable, although I only saw it in one source. Apparently, Paul Stine's older brother, Joe, the one that was like helping him pay for college, challenged the Zodiac to come find him through an article that he had published in the San Francisco Examiner. Joe was a Korean War veteran with a 10% disability rating, but he firmly stated, quote, "I'm still tough enough to handle Zodiac." In the same article, he gave a thorough recounting of his daily work routine, including the address of the service station where he was employed as an auto mechanic, the location where he would eat on his lunch breaks, and the various times of his comings and goings. He is also quoted as saying, quote, "I was very close to Paul. Now I want a chance at his killer." Unfortunately, Joe would not get to see this challenge to fruition, as there's no evidence the Zodiac ever rose to it.
He would never.
He would never?
The Zodiac would never take the bait.
No, he wouldn't. He's too smart. Following the murder of Paul and the letter with the clothing piece, bizarre events continued to happen. This is really interesting. A person claiming to be the Zodiac made 2 separate telephone calls to the Oakland Police Department at approximately 11 p.m. on Tuesday, October 21st. The caller told the officer on the other line that he wanted police to arrange for him to have the famed defense attorney, F. Lee Bailey. Do you recognize his name?
No, I have no idea who the hell that is.
He was the lawyer who, before this guy asked for him, represented Sam Shepard's eventual acquittal. No idea who that is. But he would later represent O.J. Simpson.
Okay. If the glove does not fit, if the glove does not fit,
you must acquit.
You must acquit, despite the fact he definitely done it.
He literally wrote a book after that said, "If I did it."
Yeah.
Terrible, or something like that. Also, there was like a whole thing with steroids. He wanted F. Lee Bailey to appear on a popular San Francisco morning TV program called AM San Francisco, which was hosted by Jim Dunbar. If police were unable to get Bailey, then he would settle for the well-known San Francisco defense attorney Melvin Belly. He stated that once arrangements had been made for one of these attorneys to be on the show, then he would call in and discuss his potential surrender. Obviously, we know that didn't happen because we have never caught the Zodiac. But the Oakland Police Department worked with the San Francisco Police Department, who tried to comply with these demands. But they couldn't get Bailey out to the show, but they were successful in contacting Melvin Belly, who readily agreed to be there. The show normally aired from 6:25 a.m., weird start time, to 8:30 a.m. on Channel 7 on the KGO-TV cable channel. And on this particular Wednesday morning, much of San Francisco tuned in to find Jim Dunbar joined by Melvin Belly. Dunbar explained the situation to the broadcast, and he encouraged his audience to not call into the show, which is like what his whole show is about. Like, he would always be like, hey, call in, let's talk. And he said, don't call into the show, because he wanted the lines to remain open for the Zodiac to get through easily if and when he called. After nearly an hour spent waiting, with small talk and conversation between the host and the attorney, which many claim was actually some pretty good conversation, not just like real awkwardness. Apparently they're both good at talking, which would make sense for hosting a broadcast show and being an attorney. The person claiming to be the Zodiac finally showed himself, albeit audibly. Obviously he didn't, waltz into the show. As the program returned from a commercial break, Belly could be heard saying, "Did you hear me?" To which a disembodied voice replied, "Yes, I did," before ending the call. The voice, deemed, quote, boyish by some listeners, seemed to not match what would be expected of the voice of a known serial killer. However, the stakes were too high to allow this bias to impact the opportunity to talk the killer into surrendering. So the host moved forward on the assumption that this man was the Zodiac, as he said he was. Within a few minutes, the man called back. What followed was 15 separate phone calls, with conversations that had to be pieced together. Why do you think he called 15 different times?
To not be traced.
Yep. So, reportedly, he was so paranoid about the phone call being traced that he would only hang up after a few seconds and then call back. Which would make sense. But also, like, if he was calling in to surrender, why don't you want to be traced?
Because he doesn't really want to surrender.
Yeah, stupid. Belly got the man to give a less scary name, though, and the caller asked to be called Sam, rather than Zodiac, I guess. During the broken up conversation, Sam claimed to have headaches and further suggested that his urges to kill others came as a result of these headaches. No references were made to the Zodiac, but the caller did reference having previously killed a kid and having additional desires to kill. Both the host and the attorney attempted to get the caller to say what station that he had called the night before to verify that at least he was the man that made the arrangements, like to speak to them. Sam would not or could not provide the answer.
Do you think Sam here actually is a Zodiac?
No. Let me tell you why. So multiple times in the conversation, Sam tried to get Belly to meet him atop the roof of the famed Fairmont Hotel. Coincidentally, a location near where the Zodiac stopped Paul's cab. Eventually, when the show concluded, and there were likely, more questions than before at this point, Belly and Sam, I hope I'm saying that right, Belly and Sam agreed to meet at 10:30 a.m. at a different location, St. Vincent de Paul's thrift shop. Inconspicuous. Unfortunately, but, not surprising, the time came and went for Belly to meet with Sam. Belly waited until 11:15 a.m., so literally 45 minutes, before abandoning hope and leaving the area. Despite a loss of hope for catching the killer, the San Francisco Police Department at least had many audio tapes of the man claiming to be the Bay Area's most wanted killer on the run.
The Bay Area, the Bay Harbor Butcher?
No?
Making a Dexter joke.
Oh, I couldn't get into that show.
I still keep seeing people make jokes about it.
I'm pretty sure, isn't there a whole new Dexter show coming out?
Yeah, it's already out and finished.
Oh.
Apparently it's good. There are now 4 different Dexter shows.
As somebody who loves to watch things like Bones and Criminal Minds, I could never get into Dexter.
Okay.
I didn't like him. I just found him annoying for some reason. Maybe I could try again. It's been a long time. Although I don't know if I want to watch that, to be honest. So, but I have heard it's good.
You should watch Peacemaker instead.
I'm good. I've watched bits and pieces of it when you've been watching it, and I don't like it. It's too much for me.
I do disagree on it. Infernape is not the best Pokemon.
There's going to be a very small niche of people who get that reference.
And Infernape is not the best Pokemon.
Well, you can have an argument with the listeners in the comments. If you think there's a better Pokemon, challenge Frank, I guess. I don't know. So the San Francisco Police Department ended up playing the tapes for the 3 people who had heard the killer's voice. Nancy Slover, the Vallejo Police Department switchboard operator. David Slate, the Napa Police Department officer who had been manning the Napa switchboard. And Brian Hartnell, who was a Lake Berryessa survivor. All 3 listened to various clips of the tape multiple times, but all 3 came to the same conclusion. The man who called the show was not the Zodiac.
Maybe he's just a paranoid person who he's turning on and off, talking about headaches, claiming to have killed a boy. Sounds like somebody with paranoia who just took the opportunity.
I was getting some schizophrenia vibes.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but I didn't know if I could say that, so I was waiting for the person who's a bit more trained in that field to say something.
Well, here's where my thoughts come from. So, I'm somebody who's incredibly anxious, right? I go to the, airport, to a hockey game, and you have to go through the metal detectors. And, my thoughts are going oh my God, what if I accidentally packed a bomb in my backpack or something like that?
Oh no, eat the bomb.
Right? And I'm wondering, if there was any part of this person who was oh, I did kill a kid. What if I killed these other people and I just don't know it because my head hurts so bad? Am I blacking out? That's a whole other level of paranoia.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So, who knows? But a lot of schizophrenia cases, I'm not trying to stereotype it, it is just a common part of it, is that, they have delusions of grandeur, which is I'm the best thing and people are trying to get me. Additionally, they reported that the audible characteristics of the voice were wrong, and the manner in which Sam spoke did not lend itself to the way in which the Zodiac wrote. The Zodiac appeared to have confidence and maturity that this Sam person lacked. About 4 months later, San Francisco Police Department detectives were able to determine that Eric Weil was responsible for placing numerous calls to Melvin Belly's residence, and that he had been the man who called the talk show claiming to be the Zodiac. Interestingly enough, Eric was a patient at the Napa Mental Hospital. So our thinking of schizophrenia, a related schizophrenic spectrum disorder, was probably somewhere right. But I never found out exactly what he had, which is fine because, that's his business. Following the identification of Eric, the switchboard operator who was manning the switchboard when the Zodiac called reported that the voice from the television show was not the voice of the man with whom he had spoken to. Reportedly, the caller to the Oakland switchboard also, quote, revealed knowledge about 1 or more of the 5 murders charged to the Zodiac that had never been made public. So did the switchboard operators in Vallejo and Oakland talk to the real Zodiac Killer? Well, it's certainly a possibility, but it's likely we will never know. And here is where I'm going to leave you for part 2.
Aw, man.
Yes, it's a cliffhanger. And yes, we will be torturing you, including Frank, because I don't have the research done, so he's not getting these episodes early, by not giving you another episode of the Zodiac until November.
Hey, I bet I could tell a spoiler right now for the final episode.
He wasn't caught?
Yeah, you know what I was going to say.
Yeah. I do ask that y'all forgive me, as this case is incredibly intense, very research heavy, and I would love to do some more lighthearted Halloween episodes for spooky season. So thank you for your understanding and patience. We will be back to regular scheduled programming in November when I will finish out this case, which is intense. So, thoughts, Frank, on what I've given you in part 2?
Thoughts on? How about no? Fuck it. Thoughts off.
Wax on, wax off.
The big thing that I got caught up on this is the fact that they almost had him, but because they decided that he might be a black guy instead, they didn't get him. That aggravates me. It's annoying. It's aggravating. It's ridiculous, and it's just painful to know that they could have gotten it. And it's annoying that so much evidence is being left behind, but they can't pin it on one person yet.
Yeah, and like it's almost what was I saying?
I'm a baby and you're dangling keys in front of me.
Oh, what?
What I said?
No, well, yeah, but also I'm trying to figure out what it was.
You dangle keys in front of a baby. They want it, but they can't have it.
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. You know what? There might be one person that gets it.
What were you saying before that?
About how they could have had him. Idiot. So much evidence.
Yeah, just like the idea that somebody, one person, could be responsible for the fact that more people were killed. Likely, because obviously after that murder, like we don't know. We don't have any other crimes distinctly like linked to the Zodiac, but there is like a bunch. There's like 10 or so that they believe could be related to him. Or done by him or whatever. And like I can't imagine like the heartbreak and the devastation that the person who relayed that information wrong is feeling. Whether or not racism was involved or if it was a miscommunication or whatever, that person could be responsible for more deaths. And that really fucking sucks.
It really does. Do you think they'll ever find out who did this?
I want to believe, but I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that if we could do if there was actual DNA evidence in any of these, then maybe. Because they could do what they did with the Golden State Killer and use DNA evidence and ancestry and stuff like that to figure it out. But I don't know. But we'll get more into like theories and stuff too. Probably in episode 3 or 4, depending on if I have 3 or 4 episodes. So I don't know. It's definitely a lot. I mean, I'm sure that if you've made it this far, you can understand that this is a very research heavy and very dense topic. This is not your Honey Island swamp monster kind of thing. A lot of work to do this kind of episode, so. But I'm enjoying it. I just want a little break for a spooky season. So.
All right.
That's what I got for you today. And we will wrap it up in November.
All right. So you ready for me to do my ending seal?
Yep, take it away.
Wow, we are pretty far into this, so thank you guys for sticking on here. If you're interested in the rest of anything else on our podcast, please support us. Leave us a like, comment, review, rate, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Every little bit means a lot and helps us out greatly. Go follow us on our socials, which I will at least link the Instagram in the show notes. I might link the TikTok because I think as of today we'll have our first post. We greatly appreciate all the support and love and care you guys have. And next week we'll have a very different type of episode waiting for you guys, and looking forward to that one. And check out, the links also on top, along with our Instagram, is the link to Puppysaurus if you ever want to commission art from an amazing artist. They are great. And check out the podcast we have been advocating for.
Yeah, and go check out Something Strange. Good friends of ours.
Oh, yeah.
We were just on an episode with them.
The Hex House Murders. Go check out that.
Yeah, that was recently released, and they're great gals.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's it that I have today for a little ending spiel. So,
alrighty.
You ready?
Yep.
And remember
to look for
the unknown,
the unsolved,
and the unseen.
Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Keep your eye out.